I'm tired. I'm just tired. I'm tired of the same things like happening every year and there being no discernible reason as to why that's the case. And I'm tired of Treyarch and Activision saying, "Oh no, that's not how we operate. We'll do better in the future." And then that just not seeming to actually play out. I'm tired of the game coming out and a lot of progress being made and things going in a really great direction, and then the next game coming out and seeming to take 10 steps back again for no reason. It's just tiring. And I'm tired. So this is about the fact that Treyarch have nerfed the Frenzy Fire or the stock option cheese that you could do with the LGM-1 Wonder Weapon. And it's a nuanced one because I did expect that to be nerfed. I always anticipated that would happen. I thought there was a chance that that nerf would happen sooner than it did. And yet, I still feel like this could have been done in a much better way. On launch day of Astra Malorum, everyone was trying to solve the Easter egg. As ever, community comes together to try and figure it out, right? And as I'm sure you all saw, I got to the boss fight, and we were in the boss fight, and we were really excited, and we were going as fast as we could to clap that boss's cheeks. And we got to the end of phase 1, and it softlocked us. And we had to end the game. Like, it wasn't even like a softlock where we could like start the phase again or something. There was literally nothing we could do. The game just said, lol, no. And it's one of those scenarios where since then I've seen other people also saying, yep, I got softlocked on phase 3. Yep, I also got softlocked on phase 1. Like, I've seen other people repeating that they've had the problem. The community has sort of theorized as to various reasons why it may be happening. Maybe healing aura is something you need to avoid, but maybe not. There doesn't seem to really be a community consensus because nobody is actively trying to QA test the game on Treyarch's behalf. They just want it to work. So they're doing things like avoiding healing aura, but ultimately they're just trying to get it done no matter what, right? So issues with it have persisted, and other issues have been present for me repeatedly on Astra. There have been issues with the TED trials on Astra. There have been issues with the traps on Astra. There have been issues with individual steps on Astra. There's been issues with save quitting on Astra. There's been issues with save files disappearing on Astra. And even in spite of all of that stuff, the communication, the first piece of communication, as far as I've been able to tell, that we get for the map is comms saying, we're nerfing the cheese. We're also removing the thing where players would get Easter egg quest completion, even if they died during like phase 3 of the fight. Sometimes it would still say, yep, you did it after the game. So they're removing that. And they're closing an exploit that allowed players to block zombie pathing with old Tessie. So like a pile-up glitch, basically. And those are the only things in the patch. So any and all of the other things that any of you have experienced regarding issues on the map, they're just not in there. And I think I'm going to do like a skit about this tomorrow, which is why I've got the shirt on. I was originally going to do it today, but I'm just too exhausted by the situation to actually do it today. So the no nonsense hoodie will be going back on in a minute, but I really don't understand why we had the launch of Black Ops 6 that we did, right? 6, not 7. And in that game, there were a load of instances where Treyarch nerfed fun and nerfed things that you could consider an exploit or a cheese or what have you, and did that in the hopes of maybe preserving replayability, preserving the original core intended experience, etc. And the community then responded and said, guys, this was an exploit, this was a cheese, but the way that you're rolling these things out and the way that you're communicating them to us, it's just not it. Because it makes us feel like the only thing that matters is like your internal retention database instead of the actual experience of playing the game. As a fan of COD, the day-to-day, the culture of being a zombies player who plays this game continuously throughout the live service, right? That felt like it was in second place or lower compared to this primary goal of player retention data, player retention data, player retention data. And what I and others tried to express at the time was that it's actually a real misunderstanding sometimes to purely look at your internal player retention hypothesis rather than also just looking at purely the sentiment online and going, oh, that tells us something too. People are having some fun here, and maybe that fun is worth preserving, right? And that's why was it January? I think it was the mid-season update in January. Treyarch said, we've seen community outcry and concerns about the approach that we're taking here on Citadel, in this case, and we are going to try and take a fun-first approach going forwards, right? We are going to try not to just arbitrarily nerf fun, but either to do that alongside buffs and fixes and things that improve the fun, or to just not do it at all, right? And that was good. That was the right thing for them to say at the time, and it was the right approach for them to take going forwards. And I know that if I spoke to Kevin Drew today, right, and I've not spoken to him today, just to be clear, but if I spoke to him today, I know that he would say it's really important to us to make sure that we are preserving that fun-first attitude. Like, I really believe that the Treyarch devs feel that way at their core. I think they feel that way from a depth that is almost akin to like a studio pillar, that they want the game to be fun at the end of the day. And in light of the fact that the franchise fatigue is extremely prevalent this year, and in light of the fact that Call of Duty just apologized 24 hours ago for doing back-to-back Black Ops games and for doing things that hurt the player experience and that caused them to not even want to play Black Ops 7 in the first place, in light of the fact that that's just happened, I know that there's even more pressure on Treyarch's shoulders to say, even in that context and even within that scenario, we can still show that fun to the players in leaps and bounds. We can show it to such a great extent by making these correct calls and prioritizing their fun at every possible opportunity. We've seen that. We've seen some real strides being made. The multiplayer actually is a good example of this, where we had the beta and we had the lower SBMM tests that they did, and we saw Matt Scrontz come out, and Matt has been at the studio for many, many years and been the helm behind many of the good decisions that have positively affected COD multiplayer. And in this instance, he basically did it again, where he was like, you know what? We're going to really chase down some fun things here and lean into those. And it worked. Like, I've seen a huge amount of positivity around the multiplayer decisions that they've made this year, in spite of their apology and in spite of the reasons why people aren't playing the game. Even so, they've done some really great stuff. Similarly, in the zombies mode, as much as there's a significant drop-off in the player base right now, there's so few people playing this game compared to Black Ops 6. Even so, there are some things that they've done in the zombies mode that are really welcome, positive changes. I mean, one of the things that I always go to is the music and sound design, right? I've always been effusive about how consistent that department has been at Treyarch over the years. They just cook every single time. But one area that's sound related, that's been a real weak point in the last couple of years, is the inter-character dialogue, right? The story crew and the way that they relate to one another and speak to one another in Black Ops 6, in my opinion, fell really flat and was really uninteresting a lot of the time. And already in Black Ops 7, just in 2 maps, there are so many more memorable quotes. There are so many more moments of interaction which actually tell me about who a character really is. The writing has been transformative in this game. It's been so positive. So there have been loads of things like that I can point to and say, this is fantastic, actually. And not just good, but on that fantastic level. Those things are there. And so that makes it even more frustrating when there are such obvious own goals that could be avoided and they're not. And it doesn't make sense to me. This is a small thing as well. This is a cheese nerf that I knew would be coming, like I said. It's just the fact that they've led with that rather than possibly considering the approach of saying, here are some things we're working on. When we've got a fix ready for those things, we are also going to be nerfing the cheese. Until then, for the next 3 days, have at it, have fun, right? Can you imagine the difference it might make? And again, I want to reiterate, this is a small thing, but I happen to be a long-term COD fan. I happen to have been playing zombies since the very beginning. I happen to have seen every single studio's different approach to the way they do their communications, every single studio's different approach to the way they roll their patches out, they do their buffs, their nerfs, etc. And year on year, time and time again, I've given this feedback that there just might be a better way. And it's not just me, right? It's not solely me, obviously. There's tons of people saying this, and yet we just have the same problems over and over. And I'm tired of it. So, does this actually really matter in the long run? No, it doesn't. Is it frustrating to me to feel like I'm in an endless loop where I can constantly see a problem that would be so easy to address, like unbelievably easy to address, and it would be in the devs' best interests to address it, and I know they want to do things like this, and it doesn't happen, and actually the opposite happens, and I therefore feel like I'm going crazy. Like, that is frustrating. And I'm tired of it. So, what outcome do I want from this video? I just hope that the folks that are working really hard on the COD communications right now for the patches and the buffs and the nerfs and the COD updates and the Treyarch CM account, which is brilliant. It's a step in a really positive direction. All of those things, right? All of those parts of the machine and the people powering those parts of the machine. I just hope that they can maybe have a 5-second little thought to say, is there a world where we communicated this ever so slightly differently? Does that world exist? And if that world doesn't exist, if there's no world where that could have happened, is there instead a world where you therefore say, well, we're dealing with this franchise fatigue, we're dealing with a player base that's really burned, we're dealing with really low sales, maybe we need to define a new system, define a new track, define a new pipeline, define a new process so that that world can exist, right? Just 5 seconds of thought on that, and this video will have done its job, right? Because this isn't a big deal. Like, at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. The fact that it got nerfed, it was always going to happen. I've said this to people in my chat time and time again. We can't expect this to just go on for absolutely forever, right? Much as there's an argument to be made that that could be fun, right? Because the Wonder Weapon isn't even that strong. Like, it's not as strong as the Gauntlet in Ashes. It's got a much narrower set of skills, and it's good. I like it. I love its design as well. I love the audio as well. Like, there are some things that I really do adore about it, but it's not nearly as game-breakingly good, you could say, as the Gauntlet or as other Wonder Weapons that we've seen in the past, right? And so there's an argument to be made that, yeah, giving it some kind of element of power in this regard, it's kind of an interesting choice. That's kind of interesting, right? And they could have nerfed it in such a way here where they could have said, we don't want it to be completely an exploit anymore, but we also recognize that there's some value in having that Wonder Weapon be a real asset in the fight. So we're going to do something else in its place so this doesn't just feel like a nerf to the fun, and instead feels like an adjustment to the way that we engage with the fun to still maintain the positive experience, you know? Like, this is basic stuff. And it doesn't really matter that much. It doesn't really matter. I don't know what's going on outside. I don't know if you can hear that. There's someone honking out there. It doesn't really matter that much. It's just the fact that this happens so frequently. And I'm tired. That's what it comes down to. So let me know. Do you agree? Or are you thinking this is another case of MrRoflWaffles just being endlessly negative? Do you agree, or do you think that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill? Do you agree, or do you think, well, my Easter egg hasn't soft locked, so therefore there isn't a problem. Therefore, it's not widespread. Therefore, it's not high priority enough. Therefore, there's a million reasons why they shouldn't patch that stuff right now. Where do you stand on the spectrum? Because it really could go in a lot of different directions here. This sound outside my house is so weird. It's like someone's playing bagpipes, bro. We'll leave the video there. I'm going to go investigate the bagpipes. But let me know your thoughts. I'm just tired of this stuff. And to actually make matters worse, alongside this patch, right? This patch that did not need to happen right now. Alongside this patch, which they could have waited a few days for so they could communicate in advance. Alongside it, everybody's save files have disappeared. Yeah. So all those people trying to get around 999, say bye-bye to the save file. And they've tweeted about it being like, ooh, warning you guys, the save files are gone. Warning you guys, like, don't save quit a new match because it'll like overwrite your save file or something like that. But it's the fact that this has happened in the first place. And is this the first time that that's happened? No! We've seen this repeatedly. And the patch did not need to drop now with this issue. You see what I mean? What's higher priority, right? Nerfing the cheese immediately, or making sure that any patch that goes out doesn't nuke everybody's save files. Which of those things is going to hurt the player more? The cheese being available, or their save file being deleted? Which is it going to be? It's these sorts of things that I'm like, we've got to get our priorities straight. We've just got to. But that's just me. Let me know what you think in the comments.